damn right. What's up? What's good? What is happening? Welcome to the Sports Bar. I am the actual King Smith, and we are live on the Sports Bar here at WTF Nation Radio. That intro was fire, by the way. I'm about to be put out of a job. Because what y'all don't know, if you are new to this show, is that I am typically the producer slash writer slash make shit work. But I'm taking a back seat tonight. As tonight, the producer, the main guy running things, is going to be the Army veteran, the guy affectionately known as Coach Behind the Fence. Coach, let the people know something.
What do you hear? What do you say, ladies and gentlemen? Good evening. And oh God, I've got this clusterfuck going on this today for producing this. I wanted to give King, if y'all don't know, has meetings now, Monday nights, Tuesday nights, Wednesday nights, on top of all the shows. So I'm going to try to do a little bit of a step up and do a little bit more to take it off the plate of King so that this way he can enjoy his stuff and then we can come out and talk sports. So let's see how bad of a clusterfucker or how bad of a shit show I make this one tonight. But so far it's looking pretty good. What do you think, King?
Hey, man, you've got it, boss. This is, it's nice being a backseat driver. I think why don't you kick us off on the intro, though? I actually think we need to do something regarding the vertical streams. So let me handle that, and you get us kind of kicked off over here.
For those of you that are watching while King's taking a look at the vertical streams, I wanted to bring something up to you. Across the screen on the bottom, our little scroller, I have put the phone number for Wisconsin Senator Ron Johnson right there on the ticker. And by the way, you can also Google his phone number. It's publicly identifiable information. But I want to let everybody aware of what Mr. Johnson did yesterday that affects nearly 60,000 veterans across the United States. You see, there's been a piece of legislation called the Major Richard Starr Act. And for those of you that are not familiar with that, what that will do with the Major Richard Starr Act is that will actually give retirement pay benefits to nearly 60,000 medically retired soldiers, airmen, sailors, Marines, Coast Guardsmen, and even guardians. Yeah, that's what they're called from the Space Force. They're not called Uranus protectors. They're called guardians. But there are nearly 60,000 medically retired veterans that are not receiving medical or any type of retirement pay due to the 20-year law that was put out from there that has been enacted for quite some time. Now, this bill has been sitting on desks, bipartisan desks, for nearly 10 years. This morning, during a live briefing of with both committees, the Senate and the House Committee for Veterans Affairs, the main piece of legislation that was supposed to have been discussed was the support of the Major Richard Starr Act. As this has finally been enough, and it's now been going on 10 years. Major Richard Starr has also passed away since this bill was named after him. But Senator Johnson not only decided not to put the legislation up for a vote within the next day, he denied a vote for the legislation in August, meaning that during this fiscal year, it will not be voted upon. The only other ways to get that going through this year is to put it in the National Defense Authorization Act, the NDAA, which always gets signed to pay the military and to do all the fundings and projects. And, a lot of people put that little pork bill inside there, but it hasn't been done before. But to put it up as a normal legislation, it has been denied a vote, and this scumbag senator is the reason why it has been denied a vote for this year. Yes, he is a Republican senator. So don't play the lines of which party it was, Okay, because a lot of us are saying, "Oh, he must have been a Democrat." No, sorry, mouth breathing Bubba. This guy's a Republican that did this. So I want you all to go ahead and call Senator Richard Johnson. His phone number right down there on the bottom. And I want you to leave a voicemail for him asking why he denied a vote on the Major Richard Starr Act and why is he denying the benefits that could impact nearly 60,000 medically retired veterans, to include yours truly, of benefits that could not only ease the transition from the military back to civilian life, but ease the financial burden that many medically retired veterans are facing today. So, again, give Senator Johnson a call. I am sorry for stumping on this on a sports show and bringing politics to there. But if there's one thing that I am going to be as abrupt as I can be in my professional life and my personal life, is that I am going to go ahead and support veterans regardless of what situation they're in and regardless of what circumstances they find themselves. I am here to care for my fellow brothers and sisters. I do so professionally. I do so in my private life. I do so on this show. And this senator has decided to put his own personal business and his own beliefs before the service and commitment and the benefit of those that gave him that freedom. So, ladies and gentlemen, please call him, voice your displeasure about him, in fact, actually call up the Green Bay Packers, deny him his daggone season tickets, call up the Milwaukee Brewers, make sure somebody throws the first pitch at him, he's the catcher or he's in the batter's box and he gets something thrown at him. All right, even actually call up Giannis Antetokounmpo, whatever the hell his name is. Call him up. He's Greek. He doesn't have the card to play in this. Have him just dive for the ball while he's out there, even though there would be no ball thrown to him, and give him a nice little shoulder tackle right there at a Milwaukee Bucks game. Why? Because he is putting his own interest in front of veterans' benefits and veterans' lives. Sorry, I said my piece. I had to bring that up. Did we get that thing fixed on the vertical?
No, there's a technical thing. It might be a restream thing. I don't think it has anything to do with us. You set it up properly, but it started for the first 2.5 minutes, and then just all three of the vertical platforms on YouTube cut out. But that's a technical thing.
Because I had that as vertical and landscape. So I think from this point on, when we change it up, we'll just set it up as vertical. Isn't there a way that can we change it up midstream?
No, you can't do it midstream, but I use this a lot. You did it proper. Everything on your end was perfect because I use Restream for other stuff that I do.
Yeah.
And you set it up exactly how it's supposed to be. I think something just happened on Restream side.
But we do have our landscape on our YouTube channels. Am I correct?
Yep. Everything on all other platforms are running as it should.
And speaking of platforms, hey, we've got our sports bar YouTube page back up and running. We got that thing, all 426 subscribers over there. If you haven't subscribed over to our YouTube page, please go ahead and do that. Look up the sports bar on YouTube and you'll see that we are live on there as well. And that is, King, we're about 70 people away or 74 people away from the minimum amount needed in order to monetize that channel.
Hey, you know what?
Hey, look, we can make 5 cents a show.
Hey, let me hit the subscribe button now. Boom. Yeah. Now we 73 away. And I'm going to put
well, hold on. King and me. Yeah, you, Michelle.
Hey, and that's 72.
Yeah.
That's 72. Let's drop that link down in the chat right now and get people to subscribe over here. Boom and done. I got it, boss.
And Connie Ringelman, back up 100%. Yes, I believe what you said. God bless and all support for our veterans and military. Thank you very much for your support. Appreciate what you just mentioned out there. And I do want to say that this is absolutely, if you want to back us up, call him up right there. There's his number, 202-224-5323. Thank you very much for your support for everybody. And please, the Sports Bar USA, please go ahead and subscribe to us on that as well. All right, King, you ready to start this show off, buddy?
Yes, sir. I am passenger princess today. What you got for me?
All right. Well, unfortunately, we do have some sad news to report. If any of you have seen the title of today's show or saw ESPN earlier today, unfortunately, we have to report the passing of legendary collegiate football coach Lou Holtz. Lou Holtz passed away today at 89 years old. He actually began his career over at William and Mary College in Williamsburg, Virginia. I'm not sure if you've ever been there, but he was the football coach there. Had a friend of mine in high school that played over at William and Mary, not back in that time because he was way too old. After stops over at Minnesota as well as in Arkansas, he got, and actually I'm a little embarrassed to say this, and a stop as the head coach of the New York Jets. I'm pretty sure he was embarrassed to say that.
A very short stint. I think he's the only one that quit before the season finished, right?
Yes, he was.
He has that distinction as the only NFL coach to walk away himself before the season ended.
Well, I mean,
it makes sense.
Urban Meyer, I think or Bobby Petrino was allowed to resign, wasn't he? When he was in Atlanta, I'm not sure, but I think he was kind of forced to retire after that one season over there. But yeah, Lou Holtz actually quit before the season ended because even he knew how bad the Jets were. But in 1986, after leading Minnesota to a bowl game, he had an exit clause because he grew up a fan of the Golden Dome at Notre Dame. And lo and behold, in 1987, he became the head coach of Notre Dame football, leading them to an 8-4 record and a bowl bid. And then that following season, an immaculate season of 12-0, defeating Miami as well as Washington en route to Notre Dame's last national championship in 1988. He had Notre Dame up there in the top echelon of college football from his entire time that he was coaching. I remember back in 1993 when when Notre Dame ended up going against Florida State. That was Charlie Ward's Florida State team that everybody believed was going to be the best team in the nation. Number 1 versus number 2 at South Bend, and Notre Dame ended up prevailing against Florida State. Now, Florida State eventually did win the title, and also, King, if you would remember way back, I also mentioned that my aunt was at the football game, not only for the Doug Flutie Hail Mary, but was also at the football game where Boston College the following week defeated a undefeated Notre Dame to cost them a chance at the national championship against Florida State again. But in 1995, he ended up resigning from Florida State. And then in 1999, he joined the University of South Carolina, who hadn't had a great football season in quite a long time. And then during that time with his son, Skip Holtz, he brought credibility back to USC, not that USC, the other USC, the one that's down south of me, and brought them back into prominence within the SEC right before the old bowl coach took over as the head coach. So afterwards, he retired. He ended up going to ESPN as a commentator, and his wit about him and his one-liners were some of the funniest things that you could have watched while watching college football analysis on ESPN for the last 2 decades. Now, I do mention that, yes, he was the head coach in 1976 for the New York Jets. I mean, look, does anybody ever remember Kyrie in Boston? No. Does anybody remember Mike Piazza as a Florida Marlin? No. There's
does
certain
anybody remember Coach Saban's stint in the NFL?
Yeah, Coach Saban in Miami. Yeah, in fact, nobody remembers these types of things. And look, it happens. Who remembers Rick Pitino as the Boston Celtics head coach? Not many people, other than the quote of Larry Bird, Kevin McHale, and Robert Parrish aren't walking through that door.
I love that quote.
Okay. That's about the only thing they remember about that one. And then Lou Holtz is remembered as a Jets head coach for quitting before the end of the at a 3-10 record. Okay. So that being said, the man was a legend in college football, was entertaining as an analyst. I gave you his life story. King, now I turn this over to you. Do you have any stories you would like to share about Coach Holtz or any memories you have of the late Lou Holtz?
My uncle growing up was a pastor, and he was also one of my biggest supporters when it came to me playing football. I originally let me just say this right now. For those of y'all that don't know how tall I am 67 inches or 5'7", and I'll say a half. So I round up and say 5'8". I'm not that tall. If you go back and look at me when I was a freshman in high school or 8th grade going into 9th grade, I'm about as tall as I am now as I was then. So people thought I was going to have some height to me, right? Nope. I saw everybody else do this while I stayed the same height. What I decided to do to get my athletic ability up was to get in the weight room and just try and be stronger than other people. I wasn't always the fastest. I wasn't always the strongest. So I just had to use whatever God-given ability I had. And my uncle was one of the main people that tried to help motivate me and bring out my passion about sports. I tried basketball first, and I was trash at it. Absolute garbage. Call me Dennis Rodman because I was pretty decent at rebounding, and I could play decent defense. I'm not scoring a bucket for nobody, right? So I'm the guy that's picked 8th, not last. I was never picked last because I was at least athletic enough to do something. But I'm not being picked first or early.
Wait a minute. You weren't picked last because of your skin color.
Hey, that might be true too. That might be true too. So tried basketball first, wasn't that great at it. But then the moment I got into football, and I didn't get started in football until my 8th grade going into my 9th grade year. So while everybody else was playing Pee-wee and understood, I knew nothing about the sport except for what I saw on TV, but I didn't know how to play it. So I'm already late to the game, but I was decent enough to play junior varsity and then eventually varsity coming into my sophomore year because of this quote. And one of the things that my uncle said that it clicked with me as a kid. And this quote is widely attributed to Coach Holtz. Ability is what you're capable of doing. Motivation determines what you do. And attitude determines how well you do it. And if you understand the 3 pillars of what he's talking about, I think you can get the best out of yourself, or you can say that quote to maybe motivate somebody else for them to figure out that passion, have them understand their why for what they're trying to do, and give the best performance that they're able to do going forward. Because look, I was in the same state from Carnell Cadillac Williams. And that first part of that line, ability is what you're capable of doing. He was naturally, physically gifted way better than I was as a running back, right? But the second part, motivation determines what you do, and attitude determines how well you do it. So while he might have had more natural ability, who's to say that his attitude was a lot better than mine on the football field? So I made up for some of those physical deficiencies in football by having a better attitude and motivation than others who played my position. So that quote by Lou Holtz right there, I lived by that.
That's a perfect quote to bring up to anybody who has any type of aspirations. One of the things, and I just mentioned Mike Piazza, okay? Mike Piazza was drafted in the 62nd round of the Major League Baseball draft, but he applied his craft, worked his butt off, and determined himself to make the major leagues. And then he went on to have a Hall of Fame career. we have seen time and time again all of those who have the absolute God-given ability, yet just relax on their morals, guide through it, and let their natural ability try to take them without putting in any work. The greatest of the greats are the ones who have that talent but put in that work to ensure that they stay at the top mentally, at the top intellectually, and at the top physically. Michael Jordan, LeBron James, Peyton Manning, Tom Brady, all of them were the ones who were in the room studying, were in the weight rooms practicing, were the ones perfecting their shot. Steph Curry, another great one out there. They all had God-gifted abilities, but they applied their craft to that. They weren't Jamarcus Russell. Okay. But the best of the best were able to be the ones that have done that. And even some of those ones that are just at the cusp of the best, the Drew Breeses, I'm not going to give Dan Marino because Dan Marino was another one. But when you look at those who don't have the physical acumen, the physical tools, the ability to perform and to be their best and to push themselves to the limit to become the best, that is the difference maker for what makes you successful versus what makes you a bust. And I'm glad that Lou Holtz was able to, keep that for you. It was to give you that inspiration to do that. And I assume, well, I mean, I already know this, but I know that you've put that into other aspects of your life as well.
Absolutely. Yep. Like that quote, that line right there. I didn't get a lot of stuff from the military. I got my drive and things and self-motivation from playing sports in high school. And, those type of people that would give those lines that I saw on TV or, heard on the radio growing up, those type of coaches that could motivate you through speech, man, I love those guys. And Lou Holtz was a guy that was known for some quotes.
Absolutely. And he is going to be sorely missed, not just within college football, but also within the media and within a lot of people's lives. So rest in peace, Coach Lou Holtz. Appreciate everything that you have taught us over the years and the inspiration that you have brought to many, many of college football players. Real quick, I want to say, couple people out in the chats. Let's say hi to them. First, I want to bring up Patricia Williams. Support the veterans in the military. Absolutely, Patricia. Thank you very much for your support. Appreciate you coming in. I feel a little weird saying this one, but God happened to me on Facebook, says good evening. That's not usually my line to say. So King, why don't you say it?
What's up, Boo Thang? That is my Boo Thang in the building. Appreciate your support, lady.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Michelle. Appreciate you coming on. All right, ladies and gentlemen, do want to bring up our next topic, and we're going to go a little bit of, I know NASCAR is not everybody's favorite sport, but I do want to bring up a little bit of history that happened Sunday over at the Circuit of Americas in Austin, Texas. And that is Team 2311 driver Tyler Reddick won his third consecutive race to start the 2026 NASCAR season. Took the victory at the Circuit of the Americas race, which is a road race. For those of you that are not aware, yes, they do turn right as well as turn left. The Circuit of Americas is one of the best road races, or excuse me, I will call it a circuit track, as Formula One races on it. NASCAR races on it. I believe IndyCar has tried to race on it, but something has happened. But regardless of that, he held off Aussie driver and road course expert Shane Van Gisbergen, who had a decent car but didn't have and has phenomenal driving talent on these road course races, but didn't have the car to beat Tyler Reddick. Now, this is the third consecutive race that Tyler won. No other driver in NASCAR history has won three consecutive races to begin the season. And to show the kind of dominance that this 3 victories has, right now he has a 60-point advantage over second place in the NASCAR Cup Series point standing. He has over 160 points out of 3 races than the person in 10th. That is nearly 2 full, complete races where he would have to crash out and whoever's in 10th place would have to score every single point in order to claim, even to get within 10 points of where Tyler Reddick is. Furthermore, Team 2311 is co-owned by the number 11 FedEx driver, Denny Hamlin of Joe Gibbs Racing. Fuck you. As well as the 23, which only stands for one person from North Carolina at guard, 6'6", Michael Jordan. Yes, MJ is finally found success as a team owner. Unfortunately, it's not in basketball, but it is in NASCAR, as he has been there and present for all 3 of the races and has been seen celebrating in the victory circle with Tyler Reddick and Tyler Reddick's family. Let's not forget that. But he has been there for each one of the victories and is planning on being there next week in Phoenix as Tyler Reddick goes for 4 consecutive victories to begin the season. Another note regarding this is that his teammate, Bubba Wallace, has not only finished in the top 10 for the first 2 races and finished 11th out of over at the Circuit of the Americas, but he is currently 3rd in the NASCAR points standing for the season, which means that Team 2311, after all of the ridiculousness that happened with them being uncharted last year, suing NASCAR for the ridiculous rules that NASCAR was utilizing in order to keep all of its money, and forced a change in the playoff format to better the drivers and better the fans, has now taken the early lead in the NASCAR season as not only the most dominant team, but as the most dominant driver. This kind of reminds me of the 1995-1996 season, after somebody, Nick Anderson, said 45 is not 23. And MJ came back that next season and decided to have his best season with a team as well as individually in the NBA. So, King, I know NASCAR is not your forte. I do know that hitting on Michael Jordan is one of your passions. So please explain this to me.
Okay.
Why is Michael Jordan and Team 2311 still receiving hate, even though they have been successful and are now making NASCAR history?
Oh, man. I don't like saying this unless I can not factually. I can observably point to something that makes it so that it's the only thing that can be true. And it has to be because Jordan, is he the first and only Black principal team owner?
No. Okay. In fact, he's not the first.
Okay.
And he's also not the first former NBA player to own a team. That distinction actually goes to JTD Daughtry. Daggone, what was Daughtry's first name? The one who played center for North Carolina, as well as Brad Daughtry. Sorry, I wanted to say Joe, but I know that's not his name. Yes, from Black Mountain, North Carolina, Brad Daugherty or Daughtry, whichever you want to call him. But he was the first African-American NBA player to own a team, and I believe was also the first African-American team owner. Now, don't quote me on that. There may have been a couple other individual team owners who may have owned one car, that could have been like that, but don't quote me on that. But yes, he's not the first. He is definitely the most prominent, though. Yeah. You know what I think it is? I think it's greatness hate. I talked about this before. Okay.
Yes.
I have talked about greatness hate before. How people will hate on others because they are successful. Here's a perfect example of this: the Los Angeles Dodgers. Now, I hate the Dodgers because they beat the Yankees. But the LA Dodgers right now are the new evil empire of Major League Baseball because they have all of the best players. They paid for the most money in order to do that, and they have been winning all the World Series. Same thing happens around sports where greatness hate comes from a lot of people. Everybody was upset and hated the Miami Heat when LeBron James, Chris Bosh, and D Wade all teamed up to try to go on that run for championships. And they won 2 out of 4, including the 2 in the row. But everybody loved LeBron when he went back to the Cavs because at that same time, there was a lot of people who hated the greatness of the Golden State Warriors. Now, granted, I will say 74-8 is better than 72-10, but blowing a 3-1 series lead in the NBA Finals to King James has nullified that team from ever being considered by me as one of the greatest teams ever. What did they end up doing? They ended up winning 2 championships after signing Kevin Durant 2 years later, and the greatness hate continued against Toronto. Everybody wanted to see Toronto win instead of seeing them go for a three-peat. Greatness hate happens when a lot of people start winning and it becomes boring. It's happened before in NASCAR with Jimmy Johnson. Jimmy Johnson won 6 of his 7 championships underneath the chase format, which was just reintroduced this season. People were so clamoring for Jimmy Johnson to not win a championship again, they came up with this ridiculous playoff system that they finally jettisoned, after too many controversial winners. But I believe greatness hate is what is bringing up people. People do not like to see Michael Jordan succeed. People do not like to see the best of the best succeed. In fact, I think people see enjoyment when the greatness actually gets, ends up getting knocked off the pedestal. I believe a lot of people enjoyed Toronto knocking off knocking off the daggone Golden State. A lot of people really enjoyed Philadelphia Eagles knocking Kansas City off of their pedestal. In fact, even freaking Giants and Cowboys fans were happy that, Kansas City didn't win 3 in a row, even if it was the Eagles. The Eagles became bearable because they beat the Kansas City. Even going all the way back to Arizona beating the Yankees in 2001, people were applauding the heck out of that. I think that the greatness hate still translates to those that are successful, and people do not like to see everybody being overtly, dominantly successful. I prefer dominance. I love to see one of those dominating performances because that's when you see people at the all-time greatest.
Beat me. Yep. Show up, beat me. Period.
Exactly.
Dominate.
And you know what? As a New York Jets fan, I will say that I was very happy when 18-0 went to 18-1 in Super Bowl 41. Okay. The greatness of that undefeated season was denied thanks to the New York Giants. And I'm a Jets fan.
I have a personal thing about that game. My cousin, Michael Richardson, was playing on that Patriots team. So while he's got the conference championship ring, he was denied the Super Bowl ring because of that loss to the New York Giants.
Oh man, I am sorry. I am sorry for that.
No, I don't like the Patriots, and I had greatness hate against the Patriots, so I fall into that category. But for that reason alone, I was a big Patriots fan because of my cousin Mike Richardson.
Okay, and now I'll give you one too, because you also have experienced greatness hate, even coming from me. Alabama. Ever since Saban took over as the coach, the best college football team, hands down, hasn't been Notre Dame, hasn't been Ohio State, hasn't been, Florida, hasn't been Georgia, hasn't been Clemson. It's been Alabama for the past 15 or 16 years. And now that Saban's gone, some people are kind of happy that Alabama has come back down to earth. But I know you, you were receiving a lot of hate becoming an Alabama fan, weren't you?
Oh yeah, I've always been an Alabama fan, just growing up in Alabama. When you're born and the doctor slaps your butt, the way you cry is going to determine if you're an Alabama fan or an Auburn fan.
I got you on that. All right. Look, that's enough Alabama talk for tonight. Let's get out of that one. I'm kidding.
Roll Tide.
All right. Hey, real quick, do want to say hi to a very loyal fan to the show, Mr. David Cunningham, coming back here. Haven't seen you in a couple weeks. He says, good evening, King Coach. Well, good evening, David. And thank you very much for bringing this up, but brings it into the chat. Wendell Scott, yes, and that's who I thought. I forgot that he was a team owner. I know he was a first driver, but he was the first African-American driver and team owner to compete in NASCAR's Cup Series. So that one is the first one. Wendell Scott did own his car outright. So yeah, he and with the way the team ownership kind of goes, back in the early days, in the the beginning of the start, not the current present NASCAR structure, but back in the day it used to be people would run their own cars, and as the car owner, Wendell Scott was the first one. So give credit to Wendell Scott. And if you haven't been to the NASCAR Hall of Fame to see his plaque over in Charlotte, North Carolina, go ahead and do so. It's a great thing out there. David also brings up that MJ, and he does gives the credit for his NASCAR success to his co-owner, Denny Hamlin. Yeah, I know he does. And to Denny Hamlin, I say this to you. Okay. So let's move it on to our next topic. I do want to get that off real quick. All right, King. So I know that you said before the show that you wanted to talk about this. I didn't read up on this just yet because I was trying to figure out a couple other things about Coach Holtz and the WNBA. But you've got the story of a 32-year-old man who is denied NCAA eligibility, possibly because he's got kids in junior high and, is about to have a vasectomy. Is there any truth to that?
So from the last that it was reported that I saw from Shane Tuttle, who covers NCAA sports, Shane Tuttle on his X page wrote the following: that Chad Baker-Mazar was dismissed from USC's men's basketball team after an internal investigation determined that he falsified his birth certificate. He's making the claim that an anonymous tip came in suggesting that the Dominican native is actually 32 years old and a father of 4. Now, there's been some context that's been added to that, because if that is true, that would be wild. But there hasn't been reports that have either came or the NCAA about why he actually got dismissed. Now, I can imagine that if it was determined to be because of a falsified birth certificate, I don't know the rules in black and white, but I believe that that's a big no-no violation that could have the USC's basketball team in trouble. So if that was the case, I doubt that they'd want to put that information out there. But that's the prevailing rumor mill that allegedly occurred. And I want to make sure I say that very nicely for our legalese people out there. Allegedly, he had a falsified birth certificate, and this dude was a whole papa and several years older than what people thought he was.
So Now, King, I'm not sure how much you follow Major League Baseball, but back in the 2000s and the early 2010s, there was a lot of controversy about the Dominican baseball players actually being listed as younger than what they really were on official birth certificates. So, Miguel Tejada, Albert Pujols, several other players were seen to have, magically aged 4 to 5 years later than they were, it was magically overnight. And also explained, in a way, it was kind of, I would say it was a little bit inconsequential, or not really consequential, but it was really right around the same time as this really kind of fit the thing. The prime of these athletes are from from about 27 to 32, 33, especially in baseball. In basketball, you have a little bit less of a time period. You're looking maybe about 31, as the time. And then football, you're looking at less of a time. But in baseball, you're really looking at your prime between 27 and 32. But guys like Albert Pujols and Miguel Tejada, they were having, phenomenal out of the gate seasons from when they were young, and then seemed to have fallen flat off of the earth at times that they really shouldn't have. That was considered a little bit early. Now, Albert Pujols came right back, but Miguel Tejada was not the same player that he was after it was found out that he was really 3 years older than his birth certificate, mentioned over there. So it is something that was common that, Oh, and another one who did that was David Ortiz, apparently. That was another one. Right?
Wasn't a little bit after COVID or the beer virus, wasn't there some type of controversy with the Little League Baseball where some team that was real dominant had a kid from the DR? He was apparently like 2 years older than what he claimed, and they stripped that whole team of all their wins. That was fairly recent. It might have been if not COVID year, it was maybe like 2021.
It was one of those years just recently that happened, but also one of the famous ones was a kid by the name of Danny Almonte, who played over in like the early 2000s in the Little League World Series. And he was 15 years old and threw like a perfect game, a no-hitter, and was hitting dingers just left and right out there. But it comes to find out that he really is 2 years older than what he was saying on his birth certificate.
I think that's the same story.
The kid's name was Danny Almonte.
Okay, yeah.
But there was another person who around that time, around COVID earlier, that had that same situation. But it was made, in a way I can kind of understand the reasoning behind it, and I can understand the desperate measures that a lot of the ball players do make. We're not talking about, Dominican Republic is a great place to visit, but the amount of poverty and the amount of chances and the life that you are going to have in the Dominican Republic, it's not up to the life expectation that we have. It's not up to what our standard of living is. So any chance that they would have to not only improve their life, but improve their family's life, they would take that opportunity to do that. And baseball was really a rough sport, about players' ages and things like that. They wanted to sign players as young as they possibly could. I remember Mariano Rivera was apparently signed at 16 years old out of Panama for about $5,000. And to him, $5,000 was a blessing as far as, everything that he could play, utilize. There's been a lot of that with a lot of these international players coming in. And it wouldn't surprise me, even going into the NCAA, as it turns more pro with these NIL deals, that players from these Caribbean countries and these other European or international players that don't have the great record keeping will now go into college with these NIL deals to try to, improve their financial status.
Mm-hmm.
I don't see, and then actually I bring that up because David Cunningham also brings this up here into his comment, brings it up, and it says, it seems that the introduction of the NIL money sport players may stay in college much longer, which will have older players joining professional sports. Yes, that does happen, but I am also bringing up that it could also be utilized for nefarious reasons for the improvement. We do notice, though, there's like a couple players right now that are going on their 7th or 8th year of eligibility due to red shirts. And we've reported a couple people that I believe we had one of a court case of somebody who was denied the 8th year, I think a couple weeks ago, didn't we, King?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I can't remember that
I don't
person.
remember. Yeah.
Yeah. But we had that. But, the money is now there in football and in basketball and in a couple other sports. So we're going to start seeing, not only players, well, I mean, we're bringing up definitely bad things. We're not only going to be seeing players that are going to be trying to manipulate the stats of their game while they're playing in the college ranks. We're going to see players, and we've already seen players that are holding out on NIL deals and things like that, and are getting sued by universities for not holding up their contract so that they can chase more money. But now we're going to start seeing people that are going to lie and falsify their chance so that they could get that payday. For a lot of them, especially the international players, it'll be a life-changing amount of money. So
what do you think about, because just kind of while we're here,
yeah,
holding your kid back a year, right? So that they're competing with a physical advantage over folks that are outside of the year that they're in.
Okay. And I say this as a brother of 2 brothers that happened to. My mother delayed because of my brothers' birthdays. They were a year behind as far as like when they were competing against each other. My brother was both of my brothers were close to 19 upon graduation from high school. Okay. And I had just turned 18 a couple months before. But because of their birthdays, like one was in June and then the other one was in August, both of them started a year later after kindergarten. They had some advantages coming out of high school about being a little bit older and a little bit more mature. I never really took that into that type of, situation where that is held out, where they've held them out just for different, for athletic sakes, because at that same time too, you have the opportunity to do that at the end of high school. I knew people that I would call them 5th year seniors for high school. They would go to a prep school because they did not receive any type of, scholarships, or, they didn't receive, certain things for schools that they wanted to. So they would go to a prep academy, or they would go to a place like IMG, and they would, work on the craft for the year. They would do some college prep classes. I'm not sure if they would do any type of entrance college classes, but then they wouldn't lose their eligibility, and then would go out for that next year of them being able to, be eligible for scholarships and things like that. So I see that as a year is a year is not going to make or break you, but it could do something to age you. And if that does, then I am okay with it. But to put 3 to 4 years upon somebody, like a senior going against a freshman, okay, the senior is going to beat up a freshman. A sophomore going against a freshman, or a junior going against a senior, you're not going to see that much of a difference between them. You're going to see it a lot with a 2 to 3 year age gap, especially at that young of an age. So I don't see a difference on that with the 1 year. Now, what say you, buddy?
I agree. It was the way you just said it that made me go, you know what? I can agree with that. A 1 year difference, not so much. You get that 2 to 3 year difference. Now you definitely have a gap in the physical development of a teen growing up. So I agree.
Yeah. Hey, so I'm not trying to get off of this subject real quick, but I just saw a chat over in our
I was about to bring it up. Okay.
So I wanted to bring this up, and I'm glad to bring it quick. But for those of you that do not know about what happened recently with Major League Baseball, other than the World Baseball Classic is about to head off and interrupt spring training, but we're going to have what's it called? We're going to end up having an extended part of spring training. And what ended up happening is that over the spring training, a great player, well, at one point, one of the better players and a improved player who in 2024 ended up winning a World Series with the LA Dodgers. But Jackson Profar of the Atlanta Braves is now been suspended for 162 games. So he will miss all of the 2026 season for testing positive for a performance-enhancing drug. Now, this is after last year with the San Diego Padres that he was suspended after 4 games for an 80-game suspension for testing positive for and I think, actually we did do this last year. This is going back to the beginning. He was suspended for 80 games for testing positive for a female hormone drug that one of the byproducts is an increase in testosterone. So it was a female, I'm not sure if it was like a pregnancy type of pill or something like that.
Okay.
He tested positive for that, and he got an 80-game suspension. Now he is suspended for the next 162 games and ineligible to play in the World Baseball Classic due to testing positive for another performance-enhancing drug. Now, King, this isn't the early 2000s where we've had suspected PED users. We had this ridiculous system where if you tested positive for something, you got only suspended for 10 games. And we are way past the Balco steroid era and everything that happened with Barry Bonds, Roger Clemens, and Alex Rodriguez. So PED suspensions are becoming rarer and rarer. But having this one as being the second and positive for his PED, and now having a full season of suspension for this.
Damn.
A, do you think that Major League Baseball's drug policy is still powerful? And B, do you believe that this suspension is fair?
Oh man. Okay. So I only track baseball when it comes to major news. And I can't think of a lot of suspensions that have came out, whether it was a major player or somebody that people have rarely heard of, where the performance enhancing stuff, or specifically like even around testosterone, has been a big factor in the league coming down from their drug testing position and really banning the hammer on people. Mm-hmm. So for the first part of that question, I think that they're doing exactly what they need to do for the integrity of the sport. And the second part to your question, I'll answer it like this. I find it interesting that here you have a guy that's making millions of dollars, right? And you want to be at the most physical peak position so that you can keep earning that salary for as long as possible. But cheating yourself to get there, because I view it as cheating. Like, let me raise my hand. I've made it no secret that I take testosterone. I am on TRT. Matter of fact, I had a shot today. I just got my labs back a couple of weeks ago for my levels. I'm still well in that range, and I feel great with it. So I understand what testosterone does for you as far as with your how you're able to maintain muscle and things around with having that hormone. I think it's tragic that the guy didn't learn his lesson from his last suspension, and the MLB's policy around it should continue to be enforced to keep the fairness even around the league as far as just natural ability. Now, let me look at this camera. People are doing things to skirt stuff to be able to get the best physical abilities that they can out there.
Oh, yeah.
We know it's happening.
Oh, yeah. Well, I know it's happening, and we know it's happening. And I'll say this, that it ends up detection as well as news breaking will end up breaking that stuff up. We haven't heard about this in a while, and I will actually give you two names that I do remember. The last two big names that I recall hearing about PED suspensions was Manny Ramirez, after he had tried to attempt to come back to Major League Baseball with the Tampa Bay Devil Rays, as well as Robinson Cano after his turn with the Mets. And I believe both of them have not played baseball since and never served their suspensions. As of now, there's only one person who is banned for life due to that for testing positive 3 times, and has not sought reinstatement, and is most likely his career is over. But his name was completely inconsequential to what we're arguing with. It has become a lot harder. And I will say this, it has become a lot harder to hit a Major League Baseball the way that they did in 2000s and the 90s and the early 2010s. As you can see now with the way that they approach the plate with a lot of players are the three true outcomes: a strikeout, a walk, or a home run, or a single or a home run. There's very few in between. There's no more gap hitters. There's very few contact hitters who try to, get on the base. They try to clear it and hit it where they ain't, and they ain't over the wall. So a lot of adjustment has been made to a lot of people's swings where they're going for the home runs and they're trying to approach the numbers that were done through PEDs. We haven't really had a consistent 50-plus home run hitters until recently with Aaron Judge, Shohei Ohtani, and the like. But that being said, Aaron Judge is also 6'7", 280 pounds, and Shohei Ohtani, look, as much as I want to say that he is, he's doing PEDs or something like that from Japan's coming in there, I have no proof of it. The only proof that I have is that his his interpreter, money from him, okay? But that being said, I don't have any type of physical proof from that. We do not even see physical proof from any of these people. Remember, when we were looking at the home run, this is going way, way back for all you oldies that are watching. Back there in the 97, 98 seasons of Mark McGwire hitting all of his home runs, we did see Andrestine Dion in his locker. We also saw how big these players were getting. And at the same time, too, we also saw Barry Lamar Bonds go from a guy who was skinny to decently aged to someone whose head grew 5 hat sizes. Okay, after the age of 34, and at like 37, he's putting up 73 home runs in a season. We speculated and saw physical proof that these players were cheating. At this time right now, I do not see that, especially with the superstars who are putting up those historic numbers, the Aaron Judges, the Shohei Ohtanis. If they are, I will say that it is a new type of drug that is not only undetectable at this point because they get tested more often than we would like to care to admit. It is also not giving the same side effects that a lot of the old steroids and testosterones were doing. If we want to bring up one of the best ones out here, one of the first to admit that he used steroids was Jose Canseco. And Jose Canseco's wife is on record by saying that the first time she had sex with somebody other than Jose, she did not know what testicles looked like because Jose did not have any. Yes, testicle shrinkage happens while you're taking steroids, okay?
Mm-hmm.
So let's just be honest. That's what's happening. We have no physical proof with that. So until we do, I would like to still believe, and I hold on to that shimmer of belief that everything is still in the up and up. But I have to be a little, I have to just be a little cautious while I'm thinking about that. So I agree with you at some point, but I still like to think it's on the up and up.
Okay.
Yeah. Do you see it in any other sports though? Any other type of performance enhancements?
I don't know, because it's not, well, no, because it's not as talked about in other sports outside of football.
Yeah. Yeah. In fact, actually, in football, you are seeing less suspensions than what you did before. There's
Mm-hmm.
a lot with the substance abuse policy. Now, here's a converse question to that. Do you think that the increased use of marijuana has nullified or has had a positive effect on the decreased use of steroids? I know this is completely, two different spectrums out there, but I do want to ask that question because I hadn't seen ever since, like a lot of people were worried about like the greenies being gone and the steroids being used, but at that same time, marijuana started its proliferation and acceptance and inside our society. So I've seen a lot more people, happy about marijuana, but I haven't seen that many people happy about steroids as often. Do you think that that's correlated between each other?
Ooh, that's a good question. I get the question, but I'm not entirely too sure without giving it a lot more thought.
Okay. I got you. I got you, buddy. All right. Well, hey, real quick, I before we go to the fuck it free ball it, I do want to top real quick about one quick thing, and that is about the WNBA labor dispute. So, King, just so you know, that March 10th, which is what, Tuesday of next week, is the self-imposed deadline for the WNBA players union and the league owners to ratify a collective bargaining agreement without missing any time, any games, or anything else for the season. At this point right now, even though the players union representatives have said that this is a great, this is the representatives, not the players. This is a great deal and you should take this. Brianna Stewart and a couple other high prominent players are still holding out for more money.
Hmm.
Now, I don't know how to play videos, and I sent a video over here to King last week about this whole thing, but it was a video of Angel Reese. Yeah, let's get it. And what was her name? The one from Indiana.
Caitlin.
Caitlin Clark, yes. Caitlin Clark going up to Adam Silver and demanding more money for their next collective bargaining agreement. And the exact terminology and the way that it was it is kind of like your wife coming up to you and demanding more money while they do not work and you need to work overtime so that they can afford to go out to Target. Okay. And that is essentially what is happening again as the subsidization of the WNBA by the NBA makes up the majority of the revenue and the majority of the operating budget that the WNBA operates on. So, King, I say to you, as our resident and only person who follows the WNBA, will we see a season this year? And if we don't, will it actually be missed?
Oh, two parts to that question. Will we see a season? I think that this is the best time for the players to try to leverage something to the popularity is here now, and they should capitalize on the increasing eyes that, in my opinion, players like Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese has brought to the sport. If they don't, and they have to sit out a season, that's going to put them so far behind on trying to get more people to spend money on the sport that I just don't think they should take that gamble. If I was advising them, I think you have to look at it and take a step back, and you can bring things to the table going forward, but you need to capitalize now. If the sport didn't increase in popularity the way it's done over the last 2 seasons, then sitting out wouldn't have that big of an impact. But stars like Angel Reese and some of the other players, there's been more eyeballs, more people talking about the WNBA, more people supporting the NBA. Losing that season, I think, could have adverse effects. I don't think they should do it, but the question was, will they have a season? If the self-imposed deadline is March the 10th, and we're 7 days off from it now, I haven't heard anything about the needle moving. I don't think that they're going to come to an agreement before the season kicks off in May.
Oh, man. Oh, man. Do you think there might be a shortened season then?
Ooh, if they could come to a compromise and have a shortened season like the NBA did, yes. That, I think that there is a resolution that could occur where they might meet certain deadlines to be able to have the season start, but they come to a resolution and have a shortened season.
I'm trying to remember what year
that
was
could work out.
What year was that they had the labor dispute and they shortened the season?
Was I still in high school?
22, 23, or was that 23, 24? I don't remember what year that was, but it did just happen, right? It was one. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I remember it happening, but you know what? Here's the funny thing: is a couple of years later, we still don't. We've forgotten it completely. And who remembers the cancellation of some preseason games in 2021 for the NFL while they were in a lockout or labor dispute?
Mm-hmm.
Not a lot of people do. You know what the funny thing is? A lot of people remember the 2005, 2006 cancellation of the entire NHL season. A lot, in fact, actually, not a lot of people call that the death of hockey in North America. Regardless of what we have done, hockey has not been as popular since that labor stoppage took away the entire season. At the same time, too, there's still a lot of people who 30 years later are still remembering fresh in their memory the cancellation of the World Series in 1994, which also had to do with the imposing of a salary cap across all of Major League Baseball, much like what is going to happen in 2027. So them losing an entire season might lose their entire fan base. And I don't think that they have enough of a standing ground, and it's not because they are women, but I don't believe they have the firm ground to stand on because of the way that their revenue is, with the way that they are set up and their subsidization by the NBA. If Women's World Cup is a singular event, and Megan Rapinoe was right that they brought in around the same amount of money. Well, they brought in a decent amount of money, but weren't getting paid the same percentage as the men were. So Megan Rapinoe was correct as far as fighting for that right for the Women's World Cup soccer teams.
Mm-hmm. And which was a question that I have for you. I don't know this. I haven't looked this up. I've been passenger prince this entire time for this show. Off the top of my head, it would seem like women's soccer and what's the other major? Tennis. I don't know why I was blanking on that. Tennis. Women's soccer and women's tennis likely have to be the largest revenue sports on the women's side of the house globally. Has to be.
Agreed.
Also, probably you would arguably say number 1 and number 2 in popularity.
Tennis would also be up there too. Oh, not tennis, golf.
Golf. Okay.
Yeah.
What do you know off the top of your head the revenue share that goes between women's soccer, women's tennis, and women's golf? And how big of a disparity is it with women's basketball comparatively to those three sports?
I do not know the percentages, but I do
Okay.
know that for the WTA, who hosts all of the professional men's and women's matches, that the revenue for the purses are equal in proportion. Like the men's World Cup winner or the men's U.S. Open winner in what's it called in tennis gets the same as the women's U.S. Open winner. So Coco Gauff is getting the same thing as Jokic. Now Coco Gauff is also not getting the same sponsorship money as Nadal or Jokic, or not Jokic. What?
Yeah, Jokic. You said Jokic.
Yeah, you know what I meant. Not Jokic, Djokovic. But they're not getting the same revenue as sponsorship, but they're getting the same amount of the equal share of winnings. Wimbledon, same exact way. In women's golf and the PGA, they're very close, but let's just be honest, the purses are not the same. Okay. The Masters and the men's U.S. Open is drawing a lot more fans, a lot more TV revenue, and a lot more sponsorships than the women's U.S. Open or, et cetera. So they're not getting the equal share of that. And like I said, as far as the World Cup is also determined by the nations that are going in. And the U.S. was a little behind regarding the equal share of revenue for the men's team versus the women's. Now, the women at that point, this is where Megan Rapinoe was trying to bring up that they should have equal pay for men and for women. The men's World Cup brings in the gross national product of multiple third world countries, while the women's brings it in for like one. Okay. There is more money to be spent on the men's World Cup, and they were getting equal pay. Now, are they getting equal percentages? Now they are. That is on a national level. But there is a drastic difference between the revenue made and the salaries from Major League Soccer, MLS, versus the NWSL. Okay, and I'll bring it up regarding North Carolina. North Carolina has now has an MLS team that plays over at Bank of America Stadium, and even though that it's a 70,000 seat arena, they get around 18,000 fans or so at those games. It's a football stadium; it's not that big. It shouldn't be that big, but they get around those stadiums. Up in I think it's the North Carolina Courage of the New York of the NWSL. they play at Wake Med Park, which at most sits about 5,000 people, and they don't even sell out either. There's always games available. There are more seats at the Durham Bulls baseball game than there are at Wake Med Park. So while they may get certain percentages, again, you're talking about revenues of hundreds of millions of dollars versus tens of millions of dollars. And it's unfair to pull that. The WNBA. The WNBA right now, I believe, over the time period was going to receive about 15% of the overall revenue throughout the lifespan of the CBA agreement. What complicates that is that 60% of their income comes from the National Basketball Association. So the 15% of that, even though it looks like it's a small number, it is a larger number because that is about 50% of the revenue that is generated by the WNBA, much like the NBA has done for its players. I believe they're like 52-48 or something like that. That's why you have such ridiculous NBA contracts. The WNBA does not make money. And the league minimum should be brought up. They should make concessions regarding housing and things like that, about apartments. And
Yep, I heard that was on the table. Like one of the
that
big
was on the
things
table. And I can understand that. But for the ladies to think that they deserve the equal pay and the equal share is exactly like them, saying, it's them going up to their husbands and saying, give me more money so I can spend it at Target while I don't do any more work and you get a second job. Okay.
Where did you send that video to? Was that in our sports chat, or did you send it to me?
I think I sent it in the sports chat. Yeah, I want to. Well, hold on. I got the sports chat up right now.
Let me look for it.
Yeah, it was. Oh God, this and this cartoon thing. I've been watching several of them. These guys are absolutely great. Okay. No, you know what? I did not send that one to you. I sent one of them. It's the same people that it's called Riot Comedy.
They do good stuff. Yes.
Yeah. And that's the one that I sent you regarding MJ and being the GOAT and all that other stuff. And then LeBron kept that thing going.
I've got it.
Yeah.
I've got it. If you don't mind, let me share my screen here.
Yes, absolutely.
And play this. All right. This is Riot Comedy. Fair use Riot Comedy. Fair use. Let me make the screen a little bit different here. I think this works well. All right. Let's check this out.
Trying to finalize our CBA deal is coming up, and if you don't meet our demands, then we're going on strike.
So why are you telling me? I'm the commissioner of the NBA, not the W.
Because you guys are the ones that give us our money. So give us more money, Adam, right freaking now.
Easy, dude face. You're asking for more money than your league even makes. Do you not know how money works?
Of course we do. Men make it and give us some, and then we spend it at Target.
Maybe I can be of help. Lonnie Legends. I specialize in money and chicks, and these chicks want more money. They have no leverage. They can't afford to go on strike. I got them by the lips. There's endless ways for these girls to get loot, like Legends Online Casino, where they can play live table games, slots, or the full sports book. So what's it gonna be, Adam? Yeah, real funny, Adam. That wasn't me.
Sorry, I queef when I get nervous. The deadline to finalize our CBA
Yo. Wow.
Yeah. So I will say Riot Comedy, man, they've got some really good stuff. They've got some really funny stuff, some little bit over the line stuff. I will say how they portray Karl Anthony Towns and Draymond Green is pretty funny.
I
how Bronny keeps calling LeBron Papa. That's another good
I can imagine that they have Karl Anthony Towns probably how can I say this without getting in trouble? He might be a little bit limp-wristed in some of his videos.
And what's his name? They got Wemby. Wemby is getting trained by monks and has his his balancing cinder block off of his junk and things like that. It's Riot Comedy is a good one. I kind of like them. It's just too bad that I gave up Facebook and lots of social media for Lent, so I haven't seen one of them in a while.
Okay.
Yep. All right. So, hey, real quick, as we wrap this thing up, you said at the beginning of, this, fuck it. Let's, go balls out right here and free ball it. Got no idea what we'd like to talk about. So, King, you have anything that you would like to go ahead and bring up and talk about, my friend?
I got one thing, and then we could close out the show. So I've shared that I gamble. And I do gamble using DraftKings. And because I'm a content creator as well, I have a lot of my notifications turned off on my phone because I'm getting pinged from different areas and stuff and all different kind of apps. And I could take the more methodical way of having some notifications set up and muting everything else, but I took the lazy way out and just muted all things. Well, the bad part about that is that if I win something, I may not know about it until I actually go through and check my notifications to clear stuff. So I played a DraftKings showdown between the Sacramento Kings and I want to say it was the Pacers last night in one of the late evening games. And I'm going to show my screen here. It was a $18 small, or it was actually a large field tournament GPP, where GPP stands for Guaranteed Prize Pool, where a lot of the big money is pretty much in the top three. And in this one, first place would win $20,000. Well, I'm going to share my screen here. And I tied for fifth. I tied for fifth in this showdown, in which I scored 252.75 points, and I tied with three other people and won $500 for only an $18 entrance. And apologies, I said Indiana and Sacramento yesterday. No, it was Phoenix and Sacramento. And I don't play in every showdown tournament like that, where it's just picking the top six people that you think are going to score based on the way that they have the salaries and things like that. I like to look at games that might have some injuries, where you know that the rotations are going to be tighter, and that's when I gamble and go, I'm willing to put $15, $18, $20 into an entry to see if I could win something. Well, I didn't realize that I woke up to $500 and was 3 points away from the top spot where a guy won 20 grand. And I was off by one individual, where instead of playing Jay Green, I played, I think this guy Clifford, in which I left a lot of salary on the table. So you get $50,000 where players are priced by how well they are, minutes, things like that. And a lot of people want to use up like all that salary. So if you have to pick six people, and once you have your six, there's like $200 left, a lot of people feel good about that. No, you want the six players that are all gonna basically be the nuts with fire to the right of them, where they all score higher than what their anticipated average is. And that could mean that you may leave $3,000 in salary on the table, which is what I did. I left $3,000 in salary by not picking all of the high salary players. You have to just get lucky and hope that you're low owned guy. So for me, C. Gillespie here was owned by 62.3% and got 40 points. My low salary guy here was 27.6% owned and got me 38.5. And his points to his salary, that's like almost what, a 9x for his points, where you take 38.5 and divide it by 4,200. So when you're doing something like DraftKings, those are the things that you want to think about. There were 3,921 entrants, and I tied for fifth. So that's a little victory, and that's a little bit of insight if you want to take a look into gambling, what occurs. And I took that money and and paid myself immediately out of most of it. And tomorrow, I'm looking at getting into, I'm actually doing another one again tonight for the, who's playing tonight for this matchup? I need to take a look here. It usually tells you who it's going to be. Matter of fact, let's just take a look at it now. I'm not going to build it now, as I already kind of put in a early look lineup. Tonight's game between the Pacers and the Clippers. So I built an early look lineup just to kind of see early on. And now that the announcements have been made as to who's going to be out, because Zubac wasn't listed out as early, neither was Collins, but they're hard outs now. I might tweak my lineup a bit, knowing that they're likely going to be out, and Kawhi is going to be playing. I might move him to captain if my salary allows for it. So I've done that one. And the last thing that I'll bring up here, I don't know a lot about golf, but I do know about numbers. So I entered the PGA Tour large tournament, which is going to have 47,000 entrants, and this is likely going to max out. It's $25 to enter, where the top prize is 200,000. And if you're new to this show, I've won a tournament before. I split with, I think it was 5 people, and ended up getting 18,000 for a first place split with like 5 or 6 people. So, you know, you win some, you lose some. This season, going back to football, I'm down. I'm not down a lot, but I'm down. So having these small wins where I win 500 a pop here, 400 a pop here, those help overall. So that's all I've got.
Hey, as long as you at the end of the year ended in black, you'll be okay. If you're in the red, you know, look, I hate losing money, but if you're making money off of this, and especially if you're making more money off of this than you are crypto, then hey, keep it up, man. But I don't know how your crypto portfolio is looking right now. I don't know how anybody.
You know, it's still up overall for me because I got in early.
Yeah.
I can imagine that people that might have gotten in at the peak are still down. As a matter of fact, you just have to be down because of the market in crypto right now. But
yeah, we're not at 50,000. The Dow's not at 50,000 anymore.
The Dow's not at 50,000, Coach.
Oh God Almighty. Yes. Hey, and you know, for anybody who is looking, you know, to try to, you know, who's watching right now and stuck through an hour and a half of us talking sports, and we're hoping that we were going to be talking politics outside of the non-vote for the Major Richard Starr Act. Well, unfortunately, you would have to actually turn into either Sergeant's Time tomorrow or the Monday edition on Monday to go ahead and talk about politics, talk about what's happening within the war in Iran, and to talk about what this administration is doing to force a regime change over in the Islamic Republic of Iran. We are not going to get to that one, as well as we're not going to get into why gas is now 55 cents more within a matter of 2 days over here in North Carolina. We're not going to talk about why that is. We're not going to be talking about why the Dow is no longer at 50,000. But like I said, you can do that on the Thursday edition on Sergeant's Time tomorrow with Ice and Spanky. And what are the other shows we got coming up, you know, for the rest of the channel, my man?
We are not going to have FTX this week because this is not a pay week for me. So no FTX this Friday. I believe Nemo is going to do a weekend co-ops type gaming session both Friday and this Saturday, especially with the new World of Warcraft expansion.
Oh, Jesus Christ. He's going to turn into World of War.
Hey, as soon as this is, I'm playing World of Warcraft.
Oh man! Wait, hold on. Are you turning into that guy that I shared during the staff meeting?
The guy who's got the nachos on his belly. Yep.
How do you kill he who has no life? The sword of 1,000 truths shall be upon you.
Shall be upon you. Yes.
And then Sunday, man, you know, the reset's doing real great with Dr. J. I checked her out this past Sunday and, you know, told her, you know, she was talking about doing something intentional for yourself and satisfying a want for yourself, about how well it does for your mental health. If you haven't checked out the reset on Sundays at noon with Dr. J, please go ahead and do so. It's a great show. And then,
absolutely.
Yeah, and then, you know, we talked about Monday with Monday Edition, where Ice will be talking about all the BS and the politics and all that other stuff. But then comes up on Tuesday, man. You know, I didn't know that CQ didn't have a co-host last night. I was way too daggone tired. It was 8 o'clock when I went to bed. So as soon as he started, he went by himself. And I don't know how everything went last night with him, but I'm pretty sure he will be back with Mad Mike next Tuesday on Pop Culture Warrior. And then next week, man, we're going to be talking about the impending WA lockout.
Yes, sir.
All right, King. Do you want me to sign off, or I know I'm producing this and doing all this tonight, but it's usually you that's doing the sign off for us. Would you like to take care of that, my man?
Yeah, matter of fact, let me take care of it. So to everybody watching and tuning in, thank you for tuning in to the Sports Bar here at WTF Nation Radio. It was nice for me to sit back and be passenger prince today while Coach handled all of the producing, setting up the show, and all of that jazz. And he did great. I'm going to say this, though, to everybody out there that has supported us, new or old, I thank you. I give you a salute, and I enjoy and really appreciate your continued support. If there's a like button on the platform that you're watching this on, do us a favor. Hit that like button. To everybody else, come back tomorrow for Sergeant's Time with Ice here at WTF Nation Radio. That's King. I'm Coach. America. We're out.
Did you just really call yourself Coach and me King?
Yes. Y'all knew what I meant.
Good one, buddy. All right.
That's cool.
Hey, King. We're out. Peace.